Hi, and welcome to the next in our series of Captain's Tables interviews. I'm delighted today to be joined by Daniel from Cyberowl. Daniel, I'm not going to do an introduction. You're far better at me than introducing your business, so please, over to you.
Hi, Chris. Thanks for having me. So I'm Dan from Cyberowl. I'm the CEO and one of the co-founders. Cyberowl is a maritime cybersecurity business. So we say we help shipping companies do three things. Firstly, help them know what they have on board the vessel, help them secure it, and then help them prove to people that they have secured it. And this is what we do day to day.
Fantastic, thank you. And it's great to see you again. And Daniel and Cyberowl were one of the finalists in our 2021 competition, which seems like an awfully long time ago now, although in the scheme of things, it's clearly not that long. Daniel, if I may to start with, there's lots of competitions on the market that are there to attract potential entrepreneurs and innovators. What in particular attracted you to the Captain's Table?
So we knew that if we were going to be a serious startup and vendor within the maritime space, that there were specific geographies that we really needed to focus in on. And at the time, Captain's Table had a particular focus in the Hong Kong geographies. And we had no presence, no way of getting presence, and also really no understanding of that geography at all. We were an emerging business that had just launched a product, I think about 18 months prior to that, born out of the UK with some early presence in Greece and Singapore, and we were getting to know those geographies, but just really Hong Kong was a blind spot to us. And unlike with other startups outside of the maritime sector, we knew that we wanted to look towards Asia because we had to, if we were going to be successful, we had to find a way to conquer Asia. And for us, Captain's Table was a fantastic sort of stepping stone into understanding that market, but also getting introductions into the market and making some real progress. So it was a bit of a no-brainer for us, quite frankly.
Fantastic. And I'm going to ask you to cast your mind back a little bit now to that period of 2021. Tell me a little bit about sort of the journey through from the initial application through to the finals, which were held remotely, unfortunately, but for all the reasons we know.
So we, I forget now how we came across it, but it must have been through some of the promotional work that was happening through Splash 247 or something like that. But we looked into it, and we had been a participant in other competitions before, so we knew that there's always slightly varying qualities of competitions, quite frankly, to say no more. And so we wanted to be very careful and deliberate about what we were doing, and we wanted to make sure that it really fit the objective that we were really gunning for at the time. And as I say, for us, that objective was really trying to find a way and a path through to the Asian markets. We looked at the competition. We looked at the previous winner. And what it's meant for the finalists and the winners. We looked at what the program was supporting us with, and we felt it was the right thing for us to do. I think the entire application process and the engagement process during that selection period was easy, positive, and right from the early days of the program, we were getting value by just understanding the markets, understanding the key stakeholders, understanding the key influencers, and helping us form our view firsthand of what we needed to do to really sort of make an impact in the market.
And that's great to hear. And I guess to your point, one of the challenges is to find the right vehicle to give you the access and the information around the markets where you see the growth coming. And that's a lovely segue into, obviously we came through the finals in the November of 21. Tell me about the journey that you and Cyberowl have undertaken since then in terms of the development and obviously the opportunities that the market in Southeast Asia have presented.
Now that you've mentioned the date, it's not even been a year. That's actually quite surprising. It feels like much longer than a year, but that's because it's been very action-packed for us.
Actually, maybe it was 2020. I think maybe it was 2020. Maybe I'm getting my years mistaken here.
It may well be, but even if it's 2 years, it feels more like 5 just from the sheer amount of stuff that's happened. The business has grown quite significantly. We're now at around 45 people. We've grown up out operations in Greece and Singapore, and we're now actually looking at establishing operations in Hamburg as well. We've grown our bookings and revenue over 5 times in the last 12 months. Just earlier this year, we raised about $5 million US dollars in fundraising. So there's real momentum behind the business now, and we're going through the next phase of our growing pains, and working out how to scale efficiently, effectively, and still maintain the kind of high quality product and service to the customers that currently sort of love working with us, and the prospects that we are trying to work with.
And if you don't mind me asking, I'm not going to ask you for any trade secrets, obviously, but there's been a lot of focus in the last couple of years, in particular around cyber and cybersecurity, and increasingly in the maritime sector. Are there any sort of trends or observations that you could share with us?
Yes, I mean, I think the overarching trend for us is that when we first started, we launched our product in 2019, the back end of 2019, just before the pandemic. And when we launched our product, we were a little bit ahead of the market. The market was asking itself, do I even need this? Do I even need cybersecurity on my shipping systems? Roll forward a few years, and we're now at a place when that conversation is no longer happening. It's much more about how do we best protect ourselves? What are the right choices we need to make? What are the right investments we need to make? And for those trends, this is very closely linked with digitalization, connectivity, decarbonization, because so much of this is around how do I get better, richer, more real-time data, and how do I also provide a better quality of life to our seafarers? And inevitably, that comes back to some extent to the question of digitalization, more connectivity, more data, which means that the risk of cyber attacks becomes higher in that environment. So these trends are kind of converging, which means which is what's driving our growth, really.
Yeah, fantastic. And I guess as we start to think about that 24/7 guaranteed connectivity and the issues that's going to drive, and the push for bring your own devices onto the vessels, and wearable technology and everything else we see is only going to fuel an opportunity for cyber criminals to hack into those vessels, I guess.
Indeed, yeah, indeed.
No, it's interesting. Thank you, Dan. Look, my final question, I appreciate time is tight at the best of times. We're in the process of receiving applications for this year's competition, and it's great to see those that we've received already. And with the competition finals all being well, going back to a live environment this year as well for the first time in a couple, what advice would you give to startups, innovators, entrepreneurs around the world who are thinking, actually, I have got something, but I'm just not sure about where it might fit?
So I'd say go through the process. I think a lot of founders of startups can spend a lot of time introspecting about whether their idea solves the problem or not. And actually, you can spend forever introspecting on it, but there's nothing like taking it out there and really having as many conversations as you can with real people who would really use your solution or your idea. And I think sometimes people hold themselves back because they feel the idea is not well formed enough, and or the product or whatever, it may not be well formed enough. But actually, it's the opposite is true. You must take it out there before it's well formed, because once it's well formed, it could have formed the wrong thing. And it's much harder to readjust once it's been built, compared to getting the feedback early on. So put yourself through that process. I think that's the thing I'd say. I mean, the other thing I'd say is we're sitting here talking. as alumni of Captain's Table, you know, maybe a couple of years since we've been through it, I think what you end up accessing is a family of maritime technology innovators that actually, if you continue to nurture that relationship, you get to keep for a couple of years and you know, forever probably. And you know, I still stay in touch with some people in our cohort and some people in other cohorts, and I think you go through different phases of business life cycle as a startup, and it can be a lonely journey. And actually, what you access here is, you know, a family that sort of is all roughly at the same stage, going through the same process.
Yeah.
And being able to cross refer and just check that you're not insane is very useful.
Yeah, it's that sanity check, isn't it? That without fear of sort of being judged by anybody, it's like, oh yeah, I remember when, or oh, by the way, you've got this coming down the track, and it's that sharing of that knowledge. I think that's a great point. Thank you. Listen, Daniel, we've come to the end of our short time together. As always, very lovely to see you, and thank you for taking the time. And we look forward to hopefully welcoming you to the finals this year once everything's confirmed.
Thank you, Chris.